Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraят. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, we should offer our respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Lord Narayan, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. This morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, Dhritarashtra quits home, text number 12. The verse is on the board, so you kindly repeat this after me, line by line. Iti yukto dharmarajena sarvam tat samavarnayat yatanubhutam kramasho vinayadu kulakshayam iti yukto dharmarajena sarvam tat samavarnayat yatanubhutam kramasho vinayadu kulakshayam iti yukto dharmarajena sarvam tat samavarnayat yatanubhutam kramasho vinayadu kulakshayam Mukam kroti bachalam bangam langai tegadim yakripadaram mande Shri Gurundina Tarunam. So in text 13, statement is made that distress comes upon humanity in its own way, of its own accord. So Sri Prahlad Maharaj has explained this point in a very important verse from 7th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. This verse he spoke to his Daitya or demoniac schoolmates. Prahlad Maharaj, being the son of the king of all the demons, was naturally sent to a school. As a young boy, 5 years old, he was sent to a school that was meant to educate the demons in demoniac principles. So, one of the outstanding principles of the demons is that life is meant for sense enjoyment, and to attain this sense enjoyment, one must work very hard. So, when the teachers of that school would leave for their lunch hour, then Prahlad would take opportunity to instruct his schoolmates in Bhagavat Tattva, in the truth of the knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. And in teaching them this, Prahlad Maharaj was declaring that everything that they were learning in that school was useless, should be rejected. So, in these lessons Prahlad was giving to his schoolmates, he said, Sukham aindriyakam daitya deha yogena dehina sarvata labate dhaivad yata dukkha ayatnataha. That, my dear daityas, my dear demoniac students, there is no use in working hard for sukha, for sense pleasure. Because this indriya sukha, this pleasure of the senses, deha yogena dehinam, it comes to us with this body. You have this body, and this body is programmed by the laws of nature to enjoy so much in this life. Savata labhyate daivad. This is all arranged by superior power. Daiva means superior authority. It's already ordained what you will enjoy in life. So you don't have to endeavor for enjoyment. Yata dukkha ayatnataha. And Prahlad concludes most intelligently, just like you don't have to endeavor for dukkha, for suffering, but it comes. Ayatnataha. Without your effort, without your wanting it, the dukkha, the pain, comes to you. And so also the pleasure comes to you. Just like Srila Prabhupada in a lecture gave the example of his American disciples. So he was pointing out that by the karma of his American disciples, they were always in a nice, materially nice situation. And that was due to their having that body. Srila Prabhupada said, even you go in your American body to India, and India is a very poor country, and so many people there are suffering. Still, Prabhupada pointed out, you do not suffer. Even without endeavor, when the American devotees would go to India, all arrangements would be nice for them. Wealthy Indians were thinking, oh, this is remarkable. Here's some person from America. He's become Shuddha Vaishnava, pure Vaishnava. So let me invite him in my home. Let me feed him nicely. Let me give him a nice room to stay in. out on the street. There's so many Indian sadhus with Vaishnava tilak, and they're having to beg for their food. So Srila Prabhupada, he pointed this out. You are destined to enjoy. So therefore, even you come to India, you enjoy. And on the other side, if one is destined to suffer, then no matter how much they may struggle to enjoy, they will suffer. Just like there's the story of a mother who was, she had one child, small son, who could just walk, had learned to walk. And she was pregnant and about to give birth to her second child. So the custom in India, when a woman is just about to bear a child, she goes from her husband's house back to her father's house. And there she gives birth. And for some 6 months or so, she nurses the child at the house of her father. So the birth of a child, in India anyway, is a very joyous occasion. So the mother was looking forward to giving birth. So she was eagerly going with her other child and with her husband also, under her husband's protection. Her husband was accompanying her on the road to the house of her father. But this woman was destined to suffer. So the first thing that happened was on the road, the labor pains came. She gave birth to the child, not at the house of her father, but on the side of the road. So who can check that? When it's time to give birth, you cannot say, no, let's wait a few more hours. When nature says give birth now, woman must give birth now. And then immediately afterwards, a huge storm came up. So the husband was going into the forest. He was cutting branches from trees to build a shelter because it was a very terrible rainstorm. So he put his wife and his young son and the newborn baby son inside the shelter. But the roof was leaking. So he again went out to collect some more straw to cover the roof better. But in the forest, he was bitten by a cobra and he died. So the young wife, mother, she was huddling in the crude shelter waiting for husband to return hour after hour. He did not come back. She was so worried. So finally, after the rains lessened a little bit, she went out to look for her husband, and she found his dead body. So you can imagine how unhappy she was. So then she thought, I must reach the house of my father. So she continued down the road, and then she came to a place where the road had been washed out by a stream, a powerful stream, which had been formed from the storm. So she told her little son, the toddler, the one who could just walk, you wait here on this side, and I will cross with the baby. And when I put the baby some safe place, then I'll come back and get you. So she did that, and on the other side, she set the baby down in some sheltered place, and she was just going to return. She was just turning to go back and get her son, when a huge bird, an eagle, came down and was trying to carry off the little baby. So she was waving her arms to drive away the bird. On the other side of the stream, her little son saw her waving her arms and thought she was telling her to come. So he went into the stream and was washed away. So then she saw her son being washed away. She ran to try to save him. The eagle came and took away her baby. So she tried so hard. But destiny was against her. No, you must suffer. Now, Krishna explains why we suffer in Bhagavad Gita. This is a very profound point, and we should all try to understand it. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate. So, the sufferings of life, dukkha, they take their birth. Dukkha yonaya means the dukkha, the sufferings, are born from bhoga. Bhoga means sense enjoyment. Sense enjoyment. And so from where does sense enjoyment come? Krishna says, samsparsha ja. So samsparsha, sparsha means contact. Sam means together, contact of senses with sense objects. Ja means it is born from. So in other words, bhoga, enjoyment, material enjoyment, is born from the sensations of the material body. So in other words, there are sensations in the body. And we think, sometimes we're thinking they're enjoyable. But out of these same so-called enjoyable sensations, misery comes too. So the conclusion is that enjoyment and suffering, they exist only in the mind. It's simply the mental plane. Just like a deer in the forest hears the sound of the hunter's horn. So that's a sensation. The sound comes to the deer's ear, some sparsha. The sound touches the ear of the deer, creates a sensation. And the deer thinks this is enjoyable. This is the sound of my mate calling me for love. So then the deer very happily runs to the sound. So this is bhoga. This is the endeavor for sense gratification. But out of the same source of the pleasure, which is the sound of the hunter's horn, from that same thing comes the arrow, which pierces the deer's heart. This is dukkha. This is suffering. But it's the same thing. It was simply the state of mind of the deer that thought, oh, now it's enjoyable. And then suddenly, zing! Oh, now it's suffering. So Sri Krishna concludes, Nateshu ramate buddha, that one who's Buddha, one who's intelligent, he does not respond to this call of sense enjoyment. These sensations we're experiencing in this body, they're calling us. Come and enjoy, this is nice. But intelligent person, he does not respond to the call because he knows, if I go to enjoy, zing! So to not respond to this call means not only to give up the direct attraction to sense pleasures, so-called sense pleasures, but also to give up the association of those persons who are attracted to sense pleasures. Asatsanga tyagi e Vaishnava achar Strisangi eka abhakta are. Lord Chaitanya said that this is the most outstanding feature of Vaishnava Achar, behavior of a devotee. So you can know who is a devotee by his behavior. It's not some abstract esoteric thing that, because of something happening on the unseen platform, on some mystical platform, somebody is a devotee. But actually, devotion to Krishna is manifest in behavior. And there's one symptom of behavior which Lord Chaitanya has pointed to as the most significant. That is asatsanga tyaga. That a devotee gives up association with materialistically minded people. Which means Trisanga Eka e Abhakta Ara. Two kinds of materialistically minded people. One is Trisangi, those who are very fond of sex enjoyment. And the other Abhaktas, anyone who's not a devotee. Now, why these two are mentioned? Well, because sometimes, it is seen in India, there is a class of pseudo-devotee. They seem to be bhaktas, but they're also strisangi. They're very attached to sex enjoyment, and they perform their own ras lila, trying to portray their illicit activities as being spiritual. So Lord Chaitanya has warned, don't associate with these people, even though they appear to be devotees. And certainly one should not associate with those who are clearly not devotees. Not so long ago, I was speaking with one god brother of mine, Suradas from Los Angeles, and he was telling about some discussion he had regarding there in Los Angeles, what devotee would be suitable to be put on the arati schedule, the schedule for making arati to their lordships, Sri Sri Rukmini Dwarkesh. Suradas. So, there was some list of devotees under discussion who should be asked to do the arti. And one name came up, and so Suradas said, but we can't ask him to do arti. He's not even following the regulative principles. He's having love affairs with different women. He's smoking marijuana. He's drinking. How can you ask him to go on the altar? So the answer was, Prabhu, just because he smokes and drinks and has illicit sex, doesn't mean that he's not a great devotee. You don't know his heart. You don't know that he's not so attached to Krishna in his heart. But this argument is rendered invalid by Lord Chaitanya's statement, Asatsanga Jagye Vaishnavachar. You know a Vaishnava by his association. If his association is all nonsense, then he cannot be a Vaishnava. So, one has to resist to be led into the hunter's trap. Either by being directly attracted by the hunter's horn, or by being led to the hunter by some foolish friend. There's a story of one young lion named Manoja. So Manoja was a very strong lion, and he was always going out and capturing animals and bringing them back to his old father and mother who lived in a cave. They were too old and weak to hunt. So one day, a jackal named Giriya befriended Manoja. So Manoja's father warned him, don't associate with jackals. They're very low-class creatures, and their advice is always bad. But Giriya was very expert in flattery. So he was always telling Manoja that you're so powerful, you're so great, you're the king of beasts. And Manoja liked to hear this. So he maintained his friendship with Giriya. And Giriya would always advise Manoja what kind of animal to capture and kill. And this was only according to Giriya's appetite. He he would think, today I would like to eat antelope. So he would say, Manoja, why don't you show me how powerful you are and capture one antelope? And then after Manoja captured the antelope, Giriya would praise him. Oh, you're so powerful. You're such a great hunter. And in that way, Giriya could take a nice big piece of flesh for himself after flattering Manoja very much. So one day, Giriya told Manoja, you know, we have tasted the flesh of every beast in the jungle. But there's one very excellent tasting flesh that you have not yet brought, and that is the flesh of horses. So Manoja asked, where can I find horses? And Giriya said, for that you have to go to the city. You have to leave the jungle and go to the city. So let us go to the city of Varanasi, which is not so far. And I will show you the place on the bank of the Ganges where the king's horses are bathed. Yeah. So they went there and they watched from the edge of the forest a herd of the king's horses being brought to the Ganges bank, and the men were scrubbing them. And then Giriya said, there's one horse standing a little apart. Jump on him, grab him. So Manoja went, seized the horse, and pulled it out of the water and carried it into the forest. And Giriya was saying, oh, very good, excellent, so strong, you're so strong, very nice. So when Manoja brought the dead horse to the cave where his parents lived, his father chastised him. Oh, my dear son, you are placing yourself in great danger. These horses are the property of the king, and if you continue to hunt them, the king will kill you. So, do not hunt horses. Hunt only the animals in the jungle. But Giriya the jackal, he liked the taste of horse flesh too much. So he was flattering Manoja. Oh, you are so strong and you are so swift. No one can stop you from catching horses. So again and again, Manoja was killing horses. Finally, the king arranged for a tower to be built by the bank of the Ganges. And in the tower, there was an expert hunter, bow and arrow, archer, hunter with arrow. So when Manoja went again to capture horse, he was shot with an arrow. And with the arrow through his body, he was calling to Girija, Girya, help me. And Girya said, there's no friendship with the dead. And he left. So, to be attracted by the hunter's horn directly, in other words, the allurements of the senses directly, or to be misled by some so-called friend into the hunter's trap, either way spells disaster for the living entity. This disaster arises from ignorance. In other words, because one is ignorant of the consequences of what one is doing, that one gets himself into deep trouble. Srila Prabhupada gave a very nice example to explain this point. This body is a machine, yantra, as explained by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. And we, the soul, are situated, yantra rudani maya, within this machine of material energy. So the body is a vehicle, just like a car is a vehicle. So if you get into a car, you turn on the motor, and the car. Similarly, for the spirit soul to be situated in this vehicle of the body, and the body is going. And the living entity does not know how to control this body. This is a prescription for disaster. So that is the meaning of Godas. One who's Godas is like a foolish child sitting in a big car which is roaring down the street. Foolish child at the steering wheel. Doesn't know what to do. The steering wheel. The wheel that steers the car. So to avoid this disaster, one must be Goswami. One must be the master of this body, the master of the senses. And one must become Goswami now, not tomorrow, not next week, because the car is rolling down the street right now. So then we may say, but I'm foolish, I'm helpless, I don't know how to drive this car. How will I become Goswami? How will I learn this? So therefore Krishna says, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Prade Arjuna Tishtati. That within the heart there is the real driver, Ishvara, Krishna, Paramatma. Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantrarudani Mayaya. He is actually directing the living entities in their wanderings. He's the real driver. But because the living entities are foolish, they do not know what is good for them and what is not. So Krishna is driving them to their disaster, if that's what they want. Krishna is giving, as he says elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, knowledge, remembrance, forgetfulness to the living entities according to their desires. So, to get out of the disaster, one must simply surrender to Krishna. If we surrender to Krishna, in other words, if our desire is to remember Krishna always, at every moment. So Krishna says, I give knowledge, remembrance, forgetfulness. So if that is our desire, to remember Krishna, then Krishna will give us knowledge of how to operate the vehicle of this body. And Krishna will give us forgetfulness also. Forgetfulness of what? It's forgetfulness of Maya's dictation. What is Maya dictating? Maya is dictating that your knowledge, our limited knowledge, is enough to operate this body. That's how we've gotten into this disastrous predicament in the first place. Because we listened to Maya's invitation. Yes, just like Giriya seducing Manoja. Yes, oh, you are so strong, you are so intelligent. Come on, drive this body, be in charge, take command. And actually we don't know how to do it. But Maya is saying, no, you know, you're so expert. Come on, come on. Just like one gangster film I saw many years ago. So the New York gangster, to get away, his life was in danger in New York. So he went to Sicily. To Sicily, which is the original home of the mafia. So he went to the town of his family in Sicily, and he stayed there. So in Sicily, he got married to a local girl. So she was some simple village girl, and he was big man from New York with lots of money. And he had gotten a nice limousine. So in Sicily, it is very unusual to have such a nice car. So his wife, she was always asking her husband to please teach her how to drive. You are so expert, teach me how to drive. So every day he was taking her for driving lessons. So his enemies, they discovered where he was. So they put a bomb in the car. So his young wife, she got in the car and she was calling to him, "Oh, please come, teach me how to drive. You are so expert." And when the motor was turned on, the car blew up. So this is how Maya works. "Oh, you are so expert. Show me how you drive this car, this body." We get in. "Oh, yes." So therefore, Arjuna, he didn't want to drive. He said, "I'm not going to drive this car, this body, to Sri Krishna." But that is also Maya. Because the fact is, you're in the vehicle right now, and it is driving. It is going down the road. So you have to do something. You can't just take your hands off the wheel and say, "I won't drive anymore," because it is going down the road. So Krishna told Arjuna, "Nihikaschit chanamapi jatu tishtatiya karmakrit karyate yavasha karma," that you cannot refrain. Nihikaschit chanam. Chanam means even for a second, even for a split second, you cannot refrain from acting within this body. Karyate yavasha karma. You are being forced to act helplessly. Sarva prakriti jaragunai. The modes of material nature. You are bound up by the modes of nature, and they are forcing you. They are obliging you to act. So, it is not a question of simply choosing whether to act or not act. You must act. So the answer is to act in perfect knowledge. And that knowledge comes from Krishna. Therefore, that knowledge comes from Krishna. And therefore, we have to surrender to Krishna, remember Krishna always, and act only for Him. Acting for Krishna, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yasya Sava Samarambha, Kama Sankalpa Varjita. It means to act without any interest in sense gratification.
А да действаме с него, както Кришна казва в Бхагавад-гита, е да действаме без да очакваме някаква лична изгода под формата на стивно наслаждение.
As I was explaining yesterday morning, that means to act for Krishna's pleasure, not for the so-called pleasure of the sensations of this body.
И както обясних вчера сутринта, това означава да действаме така, че да оставим удоволствие на Кришна, а не да оставяме приятни усещания на своето собствено тяло.
Because these so-called pleasurable sensations are themselves the source of all suffering.
Защото тези така наречени приятни усещания са самата първопричина за страдание.
So there's no use. It is simply self-defeating to think, no, why should I surrender to Krishna? There's so many things to enjoy, I will go enjoy them. And then your heart is just filled up with so many arrows.
Това нещо е смислено само по себе си. Когато казваме, защо да се отдам на Кришна, като мога да се наслаждавам на толкова неща. Какви са тези наслаждения, след като веднага след това в сърцето ми се задиват всичките страни?
That's a fact. These arrows which pierce the heart, this is not actually simply an analogy. It is a fact. There is a demigod called Kamadev, and he has a bow and arrow, and he's shooting his arrows. And when we act out of the whimsy of sense gratification, our heart becomes, you know what a pin cushion is? This little cushion ladies stick pins in. Yeah. The heart becomes like a pin cushion of these arrows of lust shot by Kamadeva.
И това се стои не е само някаква аналогия. Това е самата действителност, защото има такъв клубок на конфликт желание Камадев, който изправя стрелите си по тези, които обичат стирни удоволствия и отново в предина накрая сърцето ни ще стане като такава малка възгладничка за кърпички.
And these arrows are very difficult to extract.
Когато сърцето е понизено от такива стрелите, след това вадят много трудно.
They stay in the heart life after life.
И те стоят в сърцето живот след живот.
Arrows that were shot in our heart many lifetimes ago, they're still giving us trouble now.
И нас ни болят все още раните от стрели, които са ни пронизали преди много животи.
Like there's a kind of arrow made by demons, which breaks. When you try to pull it out, the head breaks and remains inside. You cannot pull the head of the arrow out. So Kamadev's arrows are like that.
И както демоните имат един такъв вид стрели, които когато се опиташ да ги извадиш обратно, тяхната глава, тяхното отстрел, което се отчупва и остава в сърцето. И стрелите на Камадев са от същия вид.
So Kamadev's arrowhead, it's actually, this arrowhead is even described in the Vedic scriptures. It consists of the 5 sense perceptions.
И главата на стрелата на Камадев е вписана в ведическите произведения и се състои от 10 възприятия.
Hearing, seeing, feeling, touching. What is that? Hearing, tasting and smelling.
Тоест да чуваме, да виждаме, да усещаме вкусни, да усещаме вкус и
So we remain perplexed life after life, bewildered by these sensory impressions. The sensations of the body, they arise and we become overwhelmed by them. Oh yes, these are so nice, let me enjoy them. That is the result of Cupid's arrow. So, therefore, there's no choice, one must surrender to Krishna. Surrender the heart to Krishna. Let Krishna take over the control of this body. In this way, one will become free from this duality, this so-called sukha, dukkha in this material world, and rise up to the transcendental platform of real happiness. So are there any questions? No? Yes? So, Vaishnava, the root of the word is Vishnu. So it means one who is a follower, a devotee of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. So devotees put Krishna at the center of their lives. That is the secret of success in association with devotees. Machita madgata prana bodhyantas parasparam katyantas chamam nityam tushyanti charamanti cha. Krishna says that my devotees relish each other's association. They derive great satisfaction, great pleasure from association with other devotees. Because in that association, Krishna is remembered, Krishna is discussed. Krishna is the Lord of the lives of the Vaishnavas. So therefore devotees are very eager to share their realizations, their bliss of Krishna consciousness with one another. So anyone who is sharing with great jubilation Krishna consciousness with other devotees, he is a devotee too. And that is Vaishnava association. He shares with great jubilation Krishna consciousness. And this transcendental pleasure, it keeps the devotees on a sublime platform of relationship with each other, which is free of all the problems of material association, like lust, anger, greed, enviousness, and so on. Then there's what is known as Vaishnavapada. Vaishnavapada means, literally, it means one who is partially a Vaishnava. So Vaishnavapada does not have this fully developed taste, this bliss of Krishna consciousness. But he's attracted to Krishna consciousness, and therefore he's attracted to associate with devotees. So, to remain in association with devotees, the Vaishnavapada must associate without offense. And he can do that so long as he maintains service attitude. If he is honest that I am not a Vaishnava, but I want to serve the Vaishnavas, then he's properly situated. This is what Srila Prabhupada used to say about himself. He would say, I'm not a devotee, but I'm trying to serve the devotees. So if Prabhupada takes that attitude, what should we do? So if we're situated in that mood of service to the devotees, there will be no problems. But as soon as someone is thinking that he is the master, he is independent, he is unique in some way, then all the troubles start. This is the ahamkara, the false ego. Are there any other questions? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.